Hi, it's Greg Dwyer. Welcome to Mindful Conversations. About a week or two ago, I was in Litchfield at a coffee shop and opened up the newspaper here, and I found that the Wisdom House right here in Litchfield has assigned Dr. Travis Tucker as a program director. So I called him up. He's here today. We're going to talk about the Wisdom House. Thank you for being on the broadcast today.
Thank you.
So this is great news. You have 30 years of experience in academia and also working with leadership and also working with philosophy, and they hired you. This is a great thing for the Wisdom House.
Right. I'm excited to be there. What you didn't mention is I used to also be a coach. In fact, I'm still coaching.
Right. Tennis, right?
Yes.
Right.
Coach tennis.
Which is kind of like leadership too, right?
Absolutely.
Excellent.
Absolutely.
So tell us the backstory, how you found the job or how they found you. I think it's fascinating. You went up and...
Well, oddly enough, I saw an ad for a program that they were having. It was called Wisdom. Actually, it was by the Fire in Our Hearts organization, which is affiliated with Wisdom House.
Okay.
And they were having a program called Wisdom Calls the Divided Heart.
Wow. And what was that about?
Well, that's the thing. I did my dissertation, my doctoral dissertation on Soren Kierkegaard, Danish philosopher.
Wow.
And I wrote about purity of heart is to will one thing. So I said, well, wisdom calls the divided heart.
Yeah.
Purity of heart is to will one thing. Oh, this has got my name written all over
So
it.
what's the one thing?
Single-mindedness.
Is it really?
Oh, yeah.
You have to tell me more about this.
Okay, all right. And Kierkegaard, very influential in my life. I can come back to that. But anyway, so I saw this program and decided to come up for the program. In the midst of looking at the program, I did a little research on Wisdom House.
Right.
I'd never been here before.
Okay.
And lo and behold, Wisdom House was advertising a program director position. I looked at that. I did a little research on the Daughters of Wisdom, the history of Wisdom House, and I discovered that we had some commonalities.
Right.
Such as their belief in the interconnectedness of all reality and how all reality is sacred, and that was something that's important to me. And so I said, all right, well, why not give it a shot? I'll apply for the job. Went through the entire interview process, and here we are.
Wow, I'm glad you're here, and you bring a wealth of information. So I like the way you looped out and in, and now you got me curious. I need to know. So what is this single-heartedness about?
Well, I'll tell you this, my own personal background. I'm Christian, so I fit in at Wisdom House, which has roots in Roman Catholicism, even though not so much anymore. But I grew up studying martial arts.
Okay.
I watched a lot of the TV show Kung Fu with David Carradine.
Oh, yeah, sure. I watched it too.
Yeah, there you go. I read Shogun, and of course I saw all of the Star Wars movies.
Oh, so the philosophy of the hero's journey and all of that?
I own more Yoda figurines than anyone I know. All right, they're two in my office right now.
I wouldn't have not known that about you. That's really, okay, all right.
So again, if you can imagine, you put all of this together, there is that underlying theme of the importance of nature. Right, how does Kung Fu start out? We learn from the crane, sort of thing. And the interconnectedness of all reality. Yeah. And also, from the martial arts, I've always been compelled by this notion of having a code, the Bushido Code.
Like ethics.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, and that's what I taught when I was a professor.
I see that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, it's very important to have a commitment. And so I was drawn, I don't know if I was just naturally drawn to Kierkegaard and this idea of single-mindedness, or if Kierkegaard had a corresponding effect on me. We were just soulmates, intellectual soulmates, but the notion that you have to be committed to something.
Does he say what it is, or you get to choose that?
Well, Kierkegaard, being a Christian philosopher, he's going to say the single-minded commitment is going to be towards Christianity.
Oh, he is going to say that, okay.
But the guiding principle I take from that is it's helpful to have some sort of set of core values. Be committed to something.
Right.
And that's one thing I'm hoping to do at Wisdom House, is to have some programs, particularly that would speak to younger people. Because so many younger people, you hear the stories all the time, where they are spiritual but not religious.
Right.
One of the reasons is because they don't know a lot about religion.
Right, sure.
And many of these kids have no moral compass. They have no guidance when things get chaotic. And as we all know, the world is very chaotic.
Yes.
We find that on a daily basis.
Yes.
And what drove me crazy as a philosophy professor, I would say to these kids all the time, look, you can be a utilitarian You can be an Aristotelian, you can be a Kantian, but just pick something.
Right.
Just grab onto something to give yourself some direction so that when things do get chaotic, you have a rock to grab onto when you're in the sea of life.
But if you don't pick a philosophy, that philosophy is going to pick you. You're going to be influenced by the culture. You're going to be thinking certain ways, not realizing that it's a Stoic philosophy. You haven't adopted it, but it has influenced you. So it's better to know and to pick.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And that's the only way we really grow.
Okay.
That's another thing I'm trying to do at Wisdom House is, I'm trying to bring programs, and actually I shouldn't say I'm bringing,
it's a team, right?
It's a team effort, and I'm really building on what's been done before by Sisters Rosemary Greco and Joanne Ionati.
Wonderful people.
Right? And so I'm trying to explore programs really in two avenues. We're talking, say, educational and experiential.
Right.
And the educational ones are more for, say, the uninitiated, people who don't know a lot about spirituality.
Right.
Maybe some younger folks.
Sure.
While the experiential programs are for people who have a little more understanding of religion. They just want to really do something that's more holistic, involve themselves more. And with these educational programs, I'm hoping that perhaps some kids will come in there, and I shouldn't say kids, I mean Generation X, millennials, just younger people. I mean, whether we're talking working adults, college students, high school students, that whole age demographic would come in there and say, look, I don't know a lot about Buddhism. They could take a program, learn a little bit about Buddhism, and say, I'm feeling this. Yes, I get this. This says something to me.
It speaks to them.
Yes,
sure.
And they grab onto it, and they have something to guide them when things get chaotic. Or they don't know the fundamentals of Christianity. I talk to people all the time who don't know the basics of Christianity. They say, I'm Christian. Don't know the basics.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Give themselves more clarity about what it is they profess to believe in.
In our society today, many of it's all watered down, or it's just thrown together in a way that people can't distinguish. And one thing I know about the Wisdom House, because I've taken a few classes there and I've been there a couple times, is it's not dogmatic. I mean, they're not going to say Lutheranism, they're not going to say the Baptist way. They're open to all types of expressions of faith.
Absolutely.
And there's no judgment, I think.
Yeah, and that's the beautiful thing. Wisdom House, it started as a convent for Daughters of Wisdom, and then it was a school for Daughters of Wisdom. And then as the demographics in the area changed, and as new leadership came in, it expanded itself, and now it is a Wisdom House. And that's really what I'm trying to explore. I mean, we keep the traditional Christian spirituality, but also have lots of programs that are interfaith, that are multi-faith. And since Sister Joanne and Sister Rosemary came in, they really emphasized programs that discuss the relationship between nature and spirituality. And if you come to Wisdom House,
it's beautiful.
It's a beautiful place.
It's wonderful.
We have the first outdoor labyrinth in the state of Connecticut.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yes.
It's the first.
The first. We have a small art gallery. And the reason why we have an art gallery is because you cannot come there and see nature and not be inspired. I can't imagine people don't come there and automatically want to paint a picture or write some poetry or something. So it's obvious that we would have programs that would show the connection between spirituality and art.
I think years ago when I was up there, I saw a photo of Richard Gere. I think he came up from maybe, is he a Buddhist? I think he might be a Buddhist.
Yes, he is.
So he came up for a program and he promotes the Wisdom House. What are some of the programs that you have currently in September, October, November coming up?
Well, funny you should ask.
I just got this in the mail. I got this in the mail the other day. Yeah. I went to my mailbox and there you were. That's great.
Yes,
they got
there
you
I
in
am.
there. And you've been working there for 2 months.
2 months as of
August.
today.
Yeah,
yes,
that's great.
So we have some programs. For example, coming up this next weekend, we have a program by Michael Higgins, who's a professor at Sacred Heart.
Nice.
He's been there several times before. He's doing one on Henry Nouwen.
Oh, very nice.
Yes. We're going to have a program about Buddhism, for example, a 4-part series that's going to happen in October. And this is going to be Equanimity and Buddhist Wisdom for Caregivers. And we have a program, speaking of multi-faith, Ada Mansour, who's been here multiple times, she will be doing a program at the end of September on women of Islam.
Oh, wow.
So it's a variety of programs that we're going to have here.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
How do people get on the mailing list? Do they reach out to you? And
You can reach out to me at ttucker
Okay.
at wisdomhouse.org.
Okay.
And I think you could also contact Bonnie Miss.
Okay.
It's Bonnie at wisdomhouse.org.
Okay.
Or just contact programs at wisdomhouse.org, and we'd be glad to send you a brochure.
What are some of your goals for, I know you just started 2 months ago, what are some of your goals for 2020 and the year and ahead? Like, are you thinking that already?
Well, it's funny you should ask, because we're actually in the middle of putting together a new strategic plan.
Oh, you are great.
Yes.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Which would help in terms of determining my own specific goals.
Gotcha.
But if I had to say, off the top, my first goal is really to reach out to a different demographic, especially the young people.
The young,
Yes, and that's just from my background.
You used to teach,
as
right?
a teacher.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. And ever since I was an undergrad, I was an RA, a resident advisor, and then since then, my whole life has really been devoted towards helping young people become better people.
Well, you do
they're full of
leadership.
selves. Yeah,
You do leadership
I
here.
started a nonprofit called Students of Character,
Right.
which is about creating students of character.
Which is ethics, morality,
yes.
Having a philosophical background,
Right,
right? I would assume.
Right, and I do volunteer work with the School for Ethical Education,
Okay.
which really kind of gave me the idea for Students of Character.
Nice.
And it's the same thing, a lot of philosophically based character education. I've also started another business, which is Leadership Skills 101. It's website-based business,
Very nice.
which is also for, we'll talk about sports. That's really about giving kids who aren't athletes an understanding of the leadership skills that anyone who's played a sport
Exactly.
gets.
Yes. Yeah, that's subtle, but it's there.
Right.
Yeah, it's very,
Right.
very much there.
And
What about Aikido? You mentioned martial arts. Did you study Aikido at all? I took a few classes.
I studied Akujujutsu,
Okay.
karate.
Well, what is that in relationship to Aikido?
Aikido is more about self-defense, and Akujujutsu, oddly enough, I'm almost embarrassed to say when I took it, it's more about harming and maiming your opponent.
Oh, really? Well, see, in my mind, Aikido is getting out of the way.
Exactly.
Like someone's going to come after you, and you
Exactly.
just use their energy
Yes.
to have them fall on the floor, and you kind of like step to the side. you know?
Akujujutsu is more offensive.
Oh, really? Okay. It's the
But
opposite.
I did temper that and learn some Taekwondo. I had lots of Korean friends when I was younger. To all of them out there, annyeonghaseyo.
Now, what does that mean?
No, that just means hello.
Oh, okay.
I
Gotcha.
said that a lot going into homes.
I thought you were going to say namaste or something like that.
But, and I did a little judo.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I
So-
do agree that there's parallelisms with the martial arts or just boxing or anything,
Right.
any sport with leadership, because you have to project, you have to be a visionary, you have to
Right.
want to win, and I guess there's also ethics in it as well.
Well,
Right.
the funny thing, as I was saying about trying to get more young people to come in, and this is presupposing that people are concerned about their spiritual growth.
Right.
And from what I can tell, when I read about the spiritual but not religious crowd, a lot of folks say, look, I don't like organized religion.
Right.
I don't know a lot about religion. Okay. But at the same time, they have certain beliefs that are very similar to people who are religious,
Sure.
who are part of some sort of religious organization or faith tradition. And they want to grow in some way. They just don't want to do it in the traditional way.
Right.
Do I have to go to church every
Right,
weekend?
exactly.
Do I have
Right.
to do this, do
Right.
that?
Do I have to
And
show up?
If that's true, then hopefully with the programs we have, we can help people find their own path and grow in that way.
Right. Exactly.
So
It's exciting, and I'm really sincerely glad that you're here. I'm not saying that the sisters didn't do a great job. They did a wonderful job.
Absolutely.
And you're standing on their shoulders, and we're looking forward to seeing what you can do. And if there's anything we can do to help you, I'd love to be involved. So let's do this. Let's take a quick break. We'll be back with Dr. Travis Tucker after this commercial break. So come on back. Welcome back to Mindful Conversations. We are with Dr. Travis Tucker. We're talking about the Wisdom House. We're talking about the fact that he just started 2 months ago, and we're going to talk about some of the programs, and then we're going to talk about philosophy. So you got to watch this, listen to this. So what are some of the things you want to do with the youth, with programs?
Well, I think one of the overall impetus for me is to see, yes, an educational background, just an underlying understanding of lots of different views, like we were talking about before with commitment,
right,
and how important that is.
Single-mindedness,
okay. But also just again the spiritual growth. I haven't seen anyone. Let's face it. You correct me if I'm wrong. I have yet to see anyone really improve vastly without committing themselves to something.
Well, especially with martial arts.
Exactly, with martial arts, and I mean we could talk about sports. Whether it's basketball, my son's a basketball player, for example. And let's face it, you go out and all of a sudden you discover you're not a good shooter, right? So you practice shooting. Or let's say you go to school and you take a few English classes and you discover all of a sudden you're not a good writer. Or I think, for example, I was just watching a special on PBS.
Okay.
The other day. It was The Brain with David Engelman.
Yes.
Eagleman. Did you ever see this one?
Yes, I have.
And they were talking to a guy who was, apparently he was a roadie for Kiss back in the 70s.
All right.
And he talked about how he was bullied and picked on when he was a kid. And lo and behold, later on, he realized, he took some tests, he had some social issues, he wasn't very good at reading people.
Okay.
Took some tests, discovered that he had Asperger's.
Yes, I was going to say that, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a connection there.
Yeah, and personally, I have a great deal of admiration for anyone who's got Asperger's, because you know as well as I do, if you have been blessed with the gift of Asperger's, you have powers of retention and focus and concentration that we mere mortals don't have.
Absolutely.
You know, I saw another PBS special that suggests that Bill Gates would probably be on that same spectrum, or the founder of my alma mater, Thomas Jefferson, would be on there. But anyway, at the same time, none of us are perfect.
Right.
We have some strengths, we have some weaknesses. And this guy, once he was able to discover that, one of the reasons why I'm having a hard time with personal relationships, with friendships, is because of the social deficits that I have. He was able to take steps to rectify it. And it's always the same process, whether we're talking about basketball, we're talking about English, we're talking about human relationships, or spirituality. You have to first understand the big picture. What's basketball all about? You realize basketball isn't just about passing and dribbling. It also involves shooting. You realize English isn't just about speaking. It also involves writing. You realize that human relationships aren't just about concrete statements. There's subtle nuances that people make.
Right.
And so then you say, okay, well, I'm participating in this. There are steps that can be taken in order to improve. You take them, maybe you work on your shooting, you get an English tutor, you work with a psychologist, whatever it is. And it would be the same thing at Wisdom House. If people could come in, particularly younger people, I'm speaking to you, come in, get a broad understanding of some tradition, of something, and then involve themselves in it, participate, learn your strengths and weaknesses, because nothing will make you humble than trying to live up to some spiritual standard. When you meet a guru or someone who is advanced and you say, wow, I've got shortcomings.
Sure.
But it involves a commitment.
Right.
You can't just get in and say, oh, this is too hard. I have to go, do this. I have to go do some meditation multiple times a week. Oh, no. Well, then you're not going to grow.
But that's our society. It's microwavable. It's like people want quick results really fast.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Well,
and I've seen it coaching, right?
You have?
Let's face it.
Okay, the same thing.
Nowadays, these kids, everybody gets a trophy and orange slices if they just participate.
But the first step is unconscious incompetent. People just don't know that they don't know, right? And then they go to the next step and they realize they're incompetent.
Right.
And they're aware of it. But see, that's where I think most people just bail.
Yeah.
And they feel bad and they think they're not good enough and they're not going to try. But anybody that's really good at something has to go through that time of testing.
Absolutely.
Right?
What made Socrates so wise? He knew that he didn't know everything.
Right. Well, let's talk about philosophy. That was a great lead-in, by the way. And by the way, we don't rehearse this. I have people that come on these shows and are like, give me the outline. You know, I just trust that you know more about this than I do, and I'm interested, and that's how this goes. So I'm reading every single morning a section of philosophy on the Stoics, a little devotion, and then a commentary. And I'm finding it intriguing, really intriguing, because it's shaping the way I think about life. What can you tell me about the Stoic philosophy?
I'll tell you this.
Okay.
It was very interesting. I have a copy of the Meditations by Marcus Aurelius.
Yeah, that's who I'm reading, yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
And the funny thing, the copy I have is from 1993. I wish I had brought it in, because in the corner of the book it says, the book that's on President Clinton's nightstand.
Oh, wow.
And I used to hold it up in my class, and I said, you know, say what you will about Bill Clinton. I don't know if he really digested much of this book.
Yeah, there you
Right?
go. Yeah, sure, right.
About being
it might be on the
stoic. It
on
might
the
be
stand,
on the
but he
nightstand.
didn't open it.
Right.
Especially when it comes to temptation and vice and you know the whole thing about the Stoics that I understand, and you probably know more about it, is about virtue, but not virtue for spiritual growth. It's not. It's virtue for the sake of reason and because it just makes sense, right? It's not like you're achieving some kind of Christ consciousness or even heaven, right? Because I don't think they really believe in anything supernatural, do they? Or did they?
No.
No,
Well, it
they
depends
didn't.
on who they were, but no, not generally.
No.
But you know, the great thing about Stoicism, I think I gave you the title about equanimity
Yeah,
for caregivers. That was really the goal of the Stoics.
it was.
And like I was just mentioning about commitment. Commitment conquers chaos is one of my sayings
Oh,
in
I
the household.
love that. You
Right?
say that to your family?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes, we've got
commitment
a whole
conquers chaos. I love it.
Okay. And the Stoics they have a philosophy that helps them conquer the chaos around them.
I love it.
Right? There's a line from, I think it's Seneca.
Yep.
It says, you know, you be a rock against which the waves of life rush in vain.
Oh my Lord, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
I
and
love it.
speaking of Shogun, I noticed one time when I read Shogun that James Clavell had appropriated it.
Did he?
He didn't give credit to Seneca.
Nothing's new under the sun, right?
That's right.
Right.
But it's just true. If you have something, you have a core, then yes, when the waves of life rush against you, they will rush in vain.
Right.
Right? And the Stoics have this philosophy to say, look, when things go crazy, when people are having rumors about you, it's not the rumors, it's your own thoughts about the rumors that are driving you crazy.
And the interesting thing is I read these personal development books, you know, in the last 20 years. I realize that they've borrowed a lot of this philosophy. They didn't come up with it.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's like they plagiarized
Right.
the mindset. I mean, we talked about Star Wars, you know, George Lucas. We talked about, you know, the concept of the hero's journey.
Right.
Who was it, Campbell? It
Yes,
was
Joseph Campbell.
You know what I
Right.
mean? But if you don't know these things, if you're not educated, you don't have a PhD, you're just like, oh, this is fun.
Right.
But there is a core to it.
Absolutely.
And you said something during the break. You said if you don't really understand philosophy will get you or influence you. Right. What do you mean by that?
Well, just the fact that, as you mentioned, philosophy, it underpins a lot of things that we don't recognize. For example, when I was a professor, every semester that I taught a section on existentialism, I would show the film Batman Begins.
Why?
Because that film is all about existentialism. The existentialist is a person who says, well, yes, the world around me is chaotic. I have to manage myself,
Right.
find myself in whatever way to overcome that chaos. And you have to have a commitment to some values to give yourself that sense of self. And I said, you've got various characters in this movie who evince this existentialist ethic, whether we're talking about Bruce Wayne.
Wow.
He's got chaotic Gotham all around you. His girlfriend, Rachel Dawes, who's committed to helping the good people of Gotham, despite the fact that it's crumbling around her. And I said, I'll tell you what, as far as I'm concerned, the most existential character in the film is Alfred.
Wow.
Everything's chaotic.
Yes. I love it.
Everything's collapsing. And he centers his life on what? Taking care of the Wayne family. For generations.
He's committed.
He's committed.
To the one thing.
To the one thing.
Wow.
It gives him stability. So, you know, the parents get killed, and he's got to take care of little Bruce, I will take care of little Bruce, no matter what.
Wow.
Bruce grows up, he keeps taking care of Bruce.
Mm-hmm. Well, what about the other thing that I'm thinking about, the movie? I lost my train of thought, but it had to do with the one thing. It'll come back to me. But yeah, it had to do with the movie. For some reason, it's just escaping me. But it'll come back to me, I'm sure. Yeah. But yeah, the one thing is really important in following that commitment, because in the process of all the craziness that's going around, if you're focused on the one thing, at least you'll achieve it.
Yeah.
You know, so.
Yeah. But to your point, here we have a movie.
Right.
You wouldn't realize it. That's infected with philosophy.
Right.
Batman.
Right. Well, Lord of the Rings.
Lord of the Rings.
There's so many movies out there that have these.
Absolutely.
What about Harry Potter?
Harry Potter.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And don't get me started on Harry Potter.
We'll have to have you.
I'm a big Lord of the Rings fan,
right.
and for some odd reason, I feel a sense of loyalty towards Tolkien.
Okay.
Harry Potter, how dare you come along? And
yes. But it is parallel. It's
Absolutely.
very similar.
Yes.
It's this idea of a story and,
Right.
and how you see yourself in the story as well.
Right.
How do you want to be remembered? And I know we only have a few minutes, but
Sure.
And you're in the prime of your career. How do you want to be remembered? A person that has given back, a person that has contributed, a person that has challenged people. What's your one thing?
Well,
what's your one thing? That's what I want to know. Can you share it?
Those all sound pretty good.
Okay.
No, I've always aspired to be the same person, no matter what.
Okay.
To be constant. I love the notion that someone could come 15 years from now and say, that Tucker, he hasn't changed a bit.
He's a rock.
Hopefully,
Yeah.
in a good way.
In a good way, sure.
But again, my whole life, whether I like it or not, but the way I'm wired is I want to help people become their best selves.
Wow.
I'm an Aristotelian. And Aristotle was famous for giving us that notion of the acorn becoming an oak tree.
Oh, I
and he
love
says
it.
that, every acorn's got potential.
Right.
But it has to be actualized. And whether I'm working with a tennis player or, a student or someone who comes to Wisdom House, if you want to grow, I want to help you.
Wow, that's wonderful. So can you give us a reference? I know you probably have a large library, but
Sure.
if someone's just starting off and wants to study philosophy, is it Philosophy for Dummies? What is the go-to book that you think that people could, do you have something like that?
I saw a book recently I picked up that was good for, I think, the novice. It was 50 philosophy ideas that you should know.
Okay.
Something like that.
Excellent.
But I will put a plug in for one of my favorite books, like my second Bible. And this...
It's got to be quick because we're going to go.
The Way of the Owl.
Okay. Well, I'd love to have you back. Would you
Okay.
be open to that?
Absolutely.
Maybe next year and talk
Sure.
about what you've done in the Wisdom House. So we'll be back next time. Thank you so much. We're with Dr. Travis Tucker. I hope we gave you something to think about. This was wonderful.
Thank you.